You can get your Dragon Ball Super Figuarts at Big Bad Toy Store at the link in the description.
Pokemon, Kaiju, Dragon Ball, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews.
Hey, hello there, collectors. It's Steven here, and I am pretty much rounding the corner for the Dragon Ball Super Broly Figuarts reviews. I do have one more coming up relatively soon that's not exactly a Broly review, but yeah, it's going to be the event-exclusive Golden Frieza. Oops, yeah, I talked about it. Gonna do it soon. Anyway, this is going to be the powered-down version of Broly from the Dragon Ball Super movie. Now, in this particular release, Bandai went ahead and they included 3-in-1. We get the powered-down base Broly, we get the, I believe fans are calling it the Ikari Broly, which is a little weird to me, and then we get the Super Saiyan Broly as well, all as different head sculpts instead of alternate releases. Now, is that really the best idea on Bandai's end, or should they have just made dedicated releases? Well, we're going to find out in this review, so let's take a look to see whether or not Broly here is worth adding into your collection. Now, in regards to looks, right out of the box, we do get Broly in his sort of powered-up head. I'm going to go ahead and just say this is the powered-up version of Broly, and relatively speaking, I think Bandai did a pretty rock-solid job with Broly here. There's no real issues or comments or concerns that I have, except for on the armor flaps, one of them has some scratched up paint. Otherwise, I do think Bandai did a pretty good job. One more issue we'll talk about in the articulation section, but Broly does look just fine. Overall, the paint application, whether it's going to be on the armor itself, is masked relatively well. Ba's ear is consistent with the full power Broly that we saw as a previous release. The boots do look good. The purple for the pants is just fine. The gauntlets look good. Yeah, and of course, across all three head sculpts, the decal application looks just fine as well. So, if you're worried about how Broly looks, I can say confidently, you don't really gotta worry about that. Broly is just fine. Good old Broly and his articulation. How did Bandai do? Well, I do think overall Bandai did an alright job. I think there are a couple of small issues here and there they could have worked around, like specifically this doesn't move, or if it does, it doesn't on mine. And that does hinder Broly a little bit, including some hair back here that doesn't, work in favor of the articulation. But if you want to get Broly into some fun poses, you can do that. Let's get into it. So Broly's head attaches into his neck on a ball joint, and as you can see here, it is a double access or a barbell style ball joint. But unfortunately, as I hinted at, his hair does block the articulation a bit. So just from using that joint, we can't really get him to move his head back to look up, realistically speaking, at all. But he can look down, he can spin his head around, that's not an issue. And as you can see here, that really does make a big deal. His normal power down here, it doesn't really change the articulation that much. We do have the ball jointed neck, which really only contributes to movement in every other direction except for up. So Broly's not really going to be looking up except for when you use the other joints in his torso, which we'll get to that in a second. Now, Broly's got a whole bunch of articulation in his arms, which again, we'll talk about in a second, but shoulder pads are going to get in the way, right? Well, we do have a double swivel system with a hinge here, so this way we can move these shoulder pads around, and there's no issues there. So realistically speaking, you can even pretend Broly doesn't even have those shoulder pads, that armor there. So that definitely helps Broly with the articulation, and honestly, as you're moving Broly's arms around, that will actually just kind of float out of the way. So that's not really a big issue. So Broly, as you kind of saw, does have the butterfly hinge system going on. No, it's closer to a ball joint, which is great for the articulation because you can kind of spin that portion of the sculpt around, which is good. I really do like that. I think it's a great idea. Now, talking about the shoulders, we do have ball joints there, so this way we can rotate the arm, we can move it around like that. And of course, we do have the dedicated hinge there, so this way we can raise and lower Broly's arm with a great range of movement there. So that's pretty cool. We do have the dedicated bicep swivel, as you can clearly see, which, like the full-powered Broly, unfortunately only has a limited range of movement. I can try to push there, but I'm going to break it. I don't know why they did that, but it is what it is. We do have a double-hinged elbow, as usual. And for the wrist, so we do have a standard Figuarts style here. So we're going to have a swivel at the base, we're going to have a hinge, and then the hands plug in on a ball joint. So moving on to the torso articulation, we do have a ball joint for the ab crunch, which really is only good for rocking Broly from side to side, and a little bit of forward and back movement. Again, this portion of the armor doesn't move at all, so that does limit the articulation a bit. And as you can kind of see here a little bit, that rubs into there, which not that great. But we do have a waist joint, which does contribute much more to Broly's movement. So if you want him to look up, that is realistically speaking how you're going to have to get Broly to do that. Now, in regards to the waistcoat Ba's ear, just like full power, we do have a hinge there, which allows you to move that back. Do we have anything else? Not really. Now, for the hips, on looking at them, it looks like we're using the renewal style hips, right? Well, no. We're actually using the 1.0 style Figuarts hips. That's right. We have the pull down hinge, and then they plug in on a ball joint to this portion of the sculpt here. So lots of movement there. And then this portion of the sculpt is actually a sleeve. So there's a joint system in there that plugs into the leg here. So Broly can actually change his height. So we can have him stand like this, and then we can have him stand up like that. So you can see he kind of has a NECA leg syndrome going on there. And then we do have the thigh swivel, which is technically a ball joint. He can split his legs out about that far. We have the double hinge knee. Thankfully, they cleaned up revealing the little washer or whatever that would be in there with the sculpt, but that does sort of hinder the ankle articulation a little bit, so careful what you wish for. And then toe hinge. So Broly's articulation, I mean, I kind of made it seem like he's not really that well articulated, but I mean, as you kind of saw in some of the pictures, he's kind of a monster. So if you're creative, you can get Broly into some really fun poses. Again, if you're creative. But yeah, I don't know. He's more of a looker than he is a really fun figure to pose. So do keep that in mind. Yeah, you're gonna have to have some patience with this guy. Good, not great. Now let's go ahead and move on over to accessories, where Broly does come with a good amount, but at the same time, he's relatively light. What? Let's talk about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the alternate head sculpts right away, and Broly's going to come with that default powered down head sculpt, which is... it doesn't really look that great with the overall body composition of this Broly, because this Broly is supposed to be powered up, cock diesel, alternate between powered up and Super Saiyan. So yeah, this is kind of out of place. I really wish they would have done a separate release, but c'est la vie. Then we do get the Super Saiyan head sculpt as well, which is just going to be a repaint of that powered up head sculpt. So yeah, pretty much looks the same. Except I do see that there are a couple of issues in regards to the mold here. It looks like there are a couple of flat parts to it. It looks like the plastic didn't get to fill up mine particularly all the way, and there are a couple of black smudges here and there, which I guess kind of adds a little bit to the detail, but it is what it is. Now, something some folks were actually concerned about was face swapping, because each head sculpt only comes with one face. I'm pleased to say that all of the black-haired Broly head sculpts, those two can swap faceplates, so if you wanted to do that, you could. Unfortunately, for the Super Saiyan head, there's nothing you can swap. But if you wanted to create a holy terror, you could swap the faceplates with the full powered Broly. Don't do it, because it's scary. Now, for the alternate hand parts, we do get left and right hand parts for really splayed hands and then gently splayed hands. Not a big difference between the two of them. So overall, I do kind of feel like Broly was, okay. Could have been better here. But yeah. Yeah, it kind of is what it is. So if you're looking for maybe some more accessories, I got a video to help you out there. Yeah. So now we'll go ahead and move on over to a size comparison where you can see how big this Broly is. And I'd have to say he fits in well with your Dragon Ball Super display that you probably already established and you want to throw Broly into. He looks pretty good. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. I've noticed that this Broly you're going to want to buy multiples of, so this way you can display the different Broly head sculpts in your display. So, I would have to say you're going to probably want to wait for a little bit of a price drop on this one. I don't necessarily think he's all the way there on par with the full power legendary Super Saiyan Broly 2.0 that we got last year. But yeah. I do think it's a good figure. I just don't think it's fully all the way there, like some of the other Figuarts for particularly the Broly movie have been. This is good. I think it's good. I just don't think it's great. So, yeah. And then that's coming from somebody who really does like Broly. So, yeah, lukewarm on this release. Maybe you won't be, but that's where I'm standing. Well, collectors, that brings us to the end of the video today, and I just wanted to take a second to thank you so much for watching. Now, you've heard a lot from me. I'd like to hear a little bit from you. Drop in the comments down below whether or not you liked it, you hated it, or maybe you were somewhere in between. I also want to take an extra second here for a nice, humongous thank you to all the patrons for SDR over the last month who have really helped the channel grow into what it can be today. So to all of you, 2 big thumbs up. Thank you very much. And now the end card should be popping up, which will give you a few clickable links, like maybe to subscribe or head on over to my Patreon, or some short URLs like to my social media or to my Teespring store. There's also a video I hand selected for you, so if you want to watch another STR video, I hand selected some good content for you to watch, so definitely check out that video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.